Hi, welcome to Empowered Mums TV. I'm your host Melissa Groom and I'm here today with my special guest Susan McLachlan. Hi, welcome to Empowered Mums TV. I'm your host Melissa Groom and I'm here today with my special guest Susan McLachlan.
Hi Melissa, thanks for having me on.
So you're welcome. Susan is the storytelling specialist. So tell us more about that, Susan, and what you do.
Well, stories are my favourite thing. I love people's stories, I love listening to them, and I think that a lot of people don't realise that their story matters. You know, they think they don't really have an interesting story. But what's interesting to one person is not interesting to another, and vice versa. So what you might think is really plain, somebody else is very inspired by. So I think everybody has a story to tell. And I love to tell the stories, so I do that through writing. So authoring and writing are a different thing. So a lot of people say, oh, but I'm not an author, you know, I can't write a book. And so I explain that an author is just the person with the ideas and the content. They don't actually physically have to write it. And that's what a writer does. A lot of people are authors and writers. But you don't have to be actually writing the words to tell your story. And so that's what I help people, you know, with writing books. And I do website copy, particularly their story on the website and their biographies. And I do social media as well. And I'm getting into the brand story where they actually film as well. You couldn't be an author of a book without writing a word of it. But it's your content, your life, and your stuff.
Like a ghostwriter, you mean?
Well, no, a writer is the person who writes. So you can be an author and a writer, like me. I've authored a book and written it. But 75 to 80% of books out there aren't written by the authors.
Wow.
Yeah, they're written by ghostwriters. So you know how you see biographies of sports people?
And
you think, well, how would they be able to write a book? Well, they haven't. Even Jeffrey's first book was written by a ghostwriter. His last three I did, but with him. But people don't realise, so they think, oh, but I can't write, I'm not an author. But you don't need to be a writer to be an author. You just have to have the ideas.
I love that.
And so I actually help people understand that about themselves, that everybody has a story, everyone is an author. And you don't have to actually be writing it. And so that's where I come in.
Lovely.
You know, I help them write if it's a book. So I do different things. So when I help people with books, then that's what I'm doing. Or they are writing it themselves and I just help them with the editing. So that's where editing and then when the finished thing, it's proofreading. So it's a whole process. And if you were to go through a publisher, they would do all those processes. You know, have an editor. And so there's structural editing, which is where you read through it and make sure it flows. Because people just never write a book in order of their thoughts. So, and then you might repeat yourself or put something later that should be earlier. Because a lot of mistakes people make is they don't have a strong introduction. And you really have to grab the audience in that introduction so that they want to read the rest of the book.
Absolutely. And the same would go for social media posts.
And a speech or anything. Anything really. You have to. It's that attention grabbing in a book. It's a chapter really.
So do you ever help people with writing their talks?
Actually, I had somebody who wanted me to do that, but I was in Toastmasters for 7 years. So I know all about writing speeches and how to have, you know. In fact, that was my favourite part of it, not delivering them, but writing them.
So before, well, obviously you've been doing copywriting, editing, proofing for a long time, but you also have another expertise, which you are sort of marrying the two together now. So tell us about that.
Well, excuse me. Since about 2011, I've been a hypnotherapist, and in 2013 I went and studied in America with Dr. Brian Weiss in past life regression, because it's just always something that's interested me. And I have a fascination with the unconscious mind. And
can you just share with our viewers, because I think some people wouldn't even understand that, just briefly, what is past life regression?
Okay. So it is a hypnotic process where I take people back to, through hypnosis and into their mind to kind of relive past lives. And, you know, a lot of people don't realise what drives them or what fears they have or blocks they have can be coming from something they've experienced in a past life and they've brought with them that they've never resolved.
Or skills.
I mean, that's where...
It can be positive or negative things, yeah.
Definitely. You know, so those skills that you have that you haven't really learned or you just come really easily. Like, look at Mozart, was playing music at the age of 5, writing and composing. Well, he didn't just learn that as a 5-year-old.
Yes.
He's brought that with him. And you see that a lot with creative people. You know, they've been something before and they've just brought it in.
Yeah.
So we're always on a continuing journey of the soul. And so by helping people, I can help them bring out their gifts or, you know, recognise that this is something they should be doing because it's what they're here for. Or, you know, if they've got a block or a fear, then you know, it helps to get rid of that, helps them understand relationships, you know, where there might be a karmic thing going on. So a lot of interesting things can happen through past life regression. I love doing it, but relating it to writing, it really helps me understand somebody. So I always interview them. Sometimes I'll pick up straight away that there's a past life thing going on and may or may not talk about it depending if they're sort of interested in that, in wanting to know more about that. But definitely it just gives another dimension to your story, is knowing all your story.
Yes, wow.
Yeah.
I haven't actually come across somebody who's got all of your skill sets that is marrying the two like that together. So I've read some of your powerful work that you're doing for like Jeffrey Slater and people like that. So, you know, business owners come to you because they want to be able to put more consistent content out there in the marketplace, because that's one of our challenges, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, with Jeffrey, I was pretty much helping a lot of his mentorship clients write their website copy. He would have a formula that he used, and the part they always found the hardest was their biography. Everyone is sort of uncomfortable with writing their own story.
Yes.
And so I would interview them and I'd you know, extract their vulnerabilities and things that would help them. And, you know, so many times people have said to me, wow, you make me sound so much better than I am. I go, well, no, that's actually how I see you, you know.
Yes.
And they just, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. So writing biographies, because it's someone's story, you know, that's all that stuff I really love the most.
Yes.
And now I've also moved into helping people with their social media. So especially if they're not a writer and they prefer video, and so they'll make a video and then they'll get it transcribed, and then I turn that into Facebook post, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the social media.
Wow.
So they can repurpose it.
That sounds awesome.
Because it's crazy to just make one thing and you know, not use it again.
That's terrific.
So that's another thing that's happened.
Yeah. And what sort of other things do you help people with? So they come to you probably to say, I want to put some content out there, but they don't realise all of the services that you offer. So can you just run through what are the services that you offer? Okay,
well, there's that. The social media is really becoming popular because people don't like to write it or they're not good at it.
Well, we just don't have all the time in the world,
and we can't be doing what you here for.
Exactly. You know? Do what you love and outsource the rest to the people who are really skilled at that.
Yeah, and you know, that's what Jeff's doing. You know, he just gets me to do that. And but the thing is, because I generally get to know the people quite well, I learn their voice and I speak in their voice. So I'm writing these things like they would talk, not like I would talk. So if you read my own stuff, it's not going to sound like the ones I write for other people, and that's something I'm particularly good at doing. People tell me. Yes, I think that's important if you are getting someone to do social media content, that it's someone who really can write in your own voice, because otherwise then people meet you and you're not the same person as what you're portraying. Yeah, so I spend a lot of time talking and kind of listening, and you have to be a good listener really. Talking, listening, and you know, reading other stuff that they've done themselves before I've come along. Yes. And then I try and keep it the same. So, you know, that's one big aspect. Then I help people with books, like I said. You know, I actually have written my own book writing guide. So I give that to people and teach them how to mind map and how to actually write a book. And then, like I said, I can help them either from stuff they've written. I can help them get ideas to write it for them.
How about like a webinar or something?
A webinar? I've never actually done a webinar. But, really, I could do anything.
Yes.
It just, actually
What's
really
the message
exciting.
that you want to get out there, and how can we structure it in a way that's going to resonate with your audience and have a beginning, body and end, which is, webinars are quite popular, and masterclasses. So I think that could be something that you could add to your
definitely.
toolkit.
And then, like I said, bios, and particularly people who are putting together a media kit.
Yes.
So they need the different kinds of bios, and people don't realise that if you're doing a bio for a website, it's always written in the first person.
Yes.
But if you're doing one to sort of try and get work as a speaker, it's written in the third person. So I get people's bios, and I have these different kinds. So it's sort of the really detailed one of my story type thing.
Yes.
In a website, but also a brief one of what you might put on the homepage, like who am I? And then the media kit. So there's 3 different kinds of bios that I do.
And then there's the ones that you put on your LinkedIn, your Facebook.
The profiles.
Yes.
Yep, profiles.
Yeah.
Well, they're pretty easy.
Yeah. Easy for you.
I know, and it's taken me a long time.
I struggle, writing a bio, because you see yourself a certain way.
Yeah.
And you come in and you see people's strengths, so that's what you can draw on. And sometimes you forget too, like the experiences that you've had, and what you've actually achieved, and you totally forget that when you're trying to write your own bio.
Yeah, like I run workshops, not so much anymore, but one of the things I love to do is to, at the end of the day, is to get everybody in the room to say what strengths they see in everybody else in the room. And it's incredible how these people can see it, but they can't see it in themselves.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone cries because they're like, oh, I never realised I was so good. And that's what
So you make us look good, hey?
I do. And I just want people to realise that they're all amazing.
Yes.
And, especially women, they get put down and, they seem to,
Well, we need to, encourage more women to embrace all of themselves, and to highlight and recognise their strengths and the wonderful things that they've achieved. And
because they're amazing people. I've been through my fair share of stuff, broken marriage and all the rest of it. So, I learned that, I'm worth it too. It doesn't have to be about a man.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's why I'm particularly passionate about working with women, and just making them understand how amazing they are.
Lovely.
So in the writing, what else do I do? Well, the brand stories is this new thing we were talking about, which I think would be really interesting. And I've certainly seen some good examples of companies that are realising that, there's a lot of competition out there, and in order to get the customer, they have to relate to them more.
Yes.
And the best way to do that is to tell their story, particularly if they've got an interesting story of how they started.
Yes.
Which a lot of companies do. Like Patagonia is one that comes to mind. And he was just a mountain climber, as a teenager, and that's all he loved to do. And then he realised about the clothing. You had to have certain kinds of clothing for the weather, and so he just started in a shed or something. And but this particular movie he's made, it's people's stories of wearing this clothing and the trips they've done and how they can't give it up, because there's a story in every jacket and everything where they've climbed here. And
that's amazing.
So they repair them and they just keep them at 40 years, and there's 40 years of story, and even hand them down.
Wow.
There's one guy, and he's wearing these pants that have been through 3 generations or something, and they're still going. So like their clothing is obviously really tough. But another guy had these board shorts, and he'd repaired them that many times and put patches on them. He eventually sent them back to Patagonia because, he said they need to see this.
Oh.
That these have been through all these surfing trips, and
yeah.
and it was just so cool, because people, I think, they love to buy into a story.
Yeah.
You know, so that
like you said, it makes them. It humanises brands, doesn't it? So.
Yeah. And so that's another thing I'd like to get into is helping people with their story and then turning it into a video or
a little short film.
But just write the script for them.
Yes.
You know, by getting their story out of them.
Yeah.
And that story could involve going into past life stuff.
Oh,
if they don't understand themselves completely.
I'm in. I'd love to do my brand story. Yeah, with you, and that'd be fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
how can people connect with you if they want to work with you? What's the best way of getting in contact?
Okay, well, at the moment I've got my Facebook page, which is Susan B. McLachlan.
Yes.
I do have a website, susanmclachlan.com, but I'm in the process of revamping it, and because it's largely still all about the past life. It has a writing aspect to it, but I'm trying to just look at the best way of doing that right now.
We're a work in progress. We always will be.
Yeah, and so
I don't think you ever get fully finished because we're always evolving as business women, aren't we? And
I've evolved so many times, you know, and so I guess the best way would be through Facebook at the moment, or a message on my website,
or LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay.
I have Twitter.
Yeah. Go and check out Jeffrey Slater's social medias, because you'll know that
I've probably written most of them.
Where all the great work came from.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure, and you are such an incredible woman with so many amazing skills, and I really look forward to seeing more of your work out there in the world.
Oh, thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We'll see you next time.